Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. I'm here to speak to Senate Bill 165, trust sponsored. This bill creates a phased pathway to universal preschool access for all 4-year-olds, built around district readiness, statewide quality standards, and transparent reporting. So Kentucky can expand access without sacrificing quality or overwhelming districts. What this bill does, it clarifies who is eligible for expansion. It sets a timeline to reach universal access by 2034, 2035. It creates uniform statewide quality expectations for all providers. It builds a statewide data system and public accountability. It protects and maximizes Head Start. It requires planning and regulations before expansion scales. It creates annual reporting to guide the General Assembly. Here's why it matters. This bill sets a clear statewide goal of universal preschool access by 2034, 2035, a date certain, while acknowledging that district capacity varies and expansion must be planned. It answers the predictable pushback, we can't do it overnight, by building in implementation plans, phased timelines, partner flexibility, waiver pathways, and data transparency, and annual reporting to guide funding and policy decisions. Now, in addition to Senate Bill 165, Senate Bill 166, but first we'll take questions on Senate Bill 165.
Can you talk to us about what kind of costs would be associated with this program?
Well, with this particular program, we're talking about, I guess in the first tranche would be $4 million each year going forward. In other words, fully funding it over a period of time to reach the time span that we're talking about.
Would districts, could they start pre-K sooner than 2034, or is 2034 the soonest it could begin?
If I have it correctly, I think it starts in the second year of this year, this biennium. It starts in this biennium, and it evenly moves toward its objectives each biennium thereafter. So what we can do now is allow Senator Chambers Armstrong to deal with Senate Bill 166, and then we'll take questions. I'll take questions as they're needed after she's done her presentation. Please.
Hello, I'm Cassie Chambers Armstrong. I'm the state senator for District 19. Most importantly, I'm here today as the mom of a preschooler. And when I tried to explain to him this morning that I was doing this press conference and trying to raise awareness about preschool, what he asked me was, "You mean every kid doesn't go to preschool?" Because for him, it is such an important part of his day, his life, his learning. It's how he's building community. And trying to explain to my own child that not every child in the state of Kentucky has those same opportunities is a really complicated thing to do. Because explaining that a lack of political willpower is one of the reasons that some kids aren't benefiting from the amazing resources that pre-K provides, that's a really tough conversation to have with our children. It's a really tough conversation to have with our community. So, most importantly, I'm here today as a mom. I am also the sponsor of Senate Bill 166, which would immediately increase the eligibility for free preschool to 250% of the federal poverty level, which increases the number of kids eligible for public preschool to 9,600 kids statewide. Right now, there are two paths that students can qualify for free public preschool through. They can either have a disability and be age 3 or 4, or they can be age 4 and be under 160% of the federal poverty level. What we know that means is that for a single mom making only $17 an hour, that mom makes too much to afford for her child to go to free public preschool. And yet that mom also can't necessarily afford, or can't afford without great risk to the other things she needs, to send that child to a private child care center. And so this would be a great benefit to our families, to our children, to our economy, and to our communities. We know that every dollar you invest into preschool programs, you get back in multiples in terms of the benefits to the money in families' pockets, to the benefits to those kids, their educational attainment, the projection that we can see their lives and careers taking. It is so smart to invest in our kids early. It is good financial sense. It is also good moral sense, and it's the right thing to do. And I'm so proud to be a sponsor of this legislation. And as Leader Neal mentioned, I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I asked the same thing to some of the House members as well, because obviously these are companion pieces of legislation. You guys are making this effort in both chambers. Is there a belief the governor suggested last week that part of the reason why maybe Republican leadership isn't taking this more seriously is because they want to wait for a Republican governor, is sort of what he said. Do you guys believe that to be true? And if so, how do you fight that?
Well, from my perspective, I could easily just say that, does that really matter?
I think it does.
Well, let's put it this way. Does what really matters that we act upon this and provide this capacity now? And that question's best put to them as to why, because they've supported this legislation in the past. In fact, the president of the Senate voted for this type of legislation before. The Speaker of the House has voted for this type of legislation before. And I think that question's best put to them, because actually right now we're in better financial position than we were at either time that they voted for this similar legislation. So I think the time is now, and I think that's what we ought to think about. But implicit in your question is, where does politics play into this? And politics is everywhere, obviously we know that. But this is not a time for politics. This is a time for us to get real and to get certain about what we're doing to advance Kentucky and what kinds of potential are we expecting and what are we providing to reach that potential. So we're here. We only have now to operate. It's always now that we have an opportunity, and we have an opportunity now. There's no question about it.
And if I could just
Please.
jump in on that as well. I will say we should never play politics with our children's futures. And I would certainly hope that that isn't what is going on. I will say that we saw members of both chambers vote to raise the eligibility standard in the past under a Republican governor, and so I hope we can have that conversation regardless of who's sitting in the chief executive chair, because we're talking about our kids' future, and that matters. Every day I see what my child is learning in pre-K, the things he's learning, things like how to be a friend, how to solve your problems, what to do when you're upset, your letters, your numbers, how to problem solve and be independent. They are skills that will stay with him for the rest of his life. And every child should have those same opportunities, and every day there are children in our communities, actual children sitting out there right now that aren't getting those. And so this is important, this is urgent, this is our children's future, and it's the future of our Commonwealth. I think we have to ask ourselves, what kind of Commonwealth do we want to be, and how are we going to show up for our littlest learners every day?
What's the current threshold to qualify for free pre-K, and about how many people take advantage of that right now?
It is 160% of the federal poverty level, which I believe is about $38,000 for a family of 4 a year. I have the numbers in this folder, but I don't have them top of mind, so I can get those to you as soon as we break.
Any other questions?
Oh, actually,
Yes.
I do have the numbers.
Go
It's
ahead, please.
approximately 25% of Kentucky kids qualify for preschool under our current guidelines.
I wanted to ask you all, we know we've kind of heard from Republicans that they've had grievances about how to pay for this. It seems like the governor had a recommendation to use revenue from sports betting to pay for this. Is that something that is in mind for you all, or what's your thought about how to factor this into the budget?
Well, let me speak generally about that. It's not a matter of whether we have the capacity to do that. We have the capacity to do it. Coming together and agreeing that we need to do it is the key question, and then we can determine the best pathways. And maybe the governor has insight into it and has the best way to do it, but we're going to all have to sit down at the table and agree on where that's going to come from. You have a comment?
Yeah. In a budget cycle, you'll hear us say a lot that our budget is a moral document. Just like for a family, when I look at your family budget and what you spend money on, I can see what you value. When you look at the budget of the state of Kentucky, you should be able to tell what we value. And one of the things that we should be investing in the most is education. I'm proud that we do invest a lot in education. But we look at the data and we look at the research and we see the ways that those early investments in our littlest learners pay dividends down the road. Maybe we have to invest less in those programs to help kids along the way when they get to be middle schoolers, high schoolers, post-secondary education, because we invested in them early. And so again, it is the smart thing to do, it's the right thing to do. I know that it's something that we can have the willpower to do, and I know that if we do it, it's going to change lives.
Any other questions?
Over in the other chamber, there's been a Republican proposal around childcare, House Bill 6, filed by Representative Samara Havron. Curious if you all had a chance to take a look at that and have any thoughts.
I haven't had a chance to
Haven't had a
review
chance
it,
to
but generally always interested in looking at childcare policy.
Anyone else? First of all, thank you very much for coming. We're sort of mouthpieces here, but the reality is that we're all in this together. The members that are behind us now are just as passionate about this as we are. And there's a group of people out there that you probably know, some of which I don't even know, that are passionate about this. But we appreciate it. The point I want to make and the point I want you to leave with is that we can do this now, and we should do it now. And that's what we want to say. That's what we want to thank you for coming. And we'll be available down the road to speak further about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.